It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
That's caught! Touchdown! Stayed inside the boundary and gets in for 6.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Richie right to the rim, driving score! He would not be denied!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Sponsored by Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Kyle Ireland. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome on in to Cougar Sports Saturday. Hope you're having a fantastic weekend so far. It's Saturday, September 13th. Mitch Harper, Kyle Ireland with you, coming to you live from Broadcast House in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's been a difficult week, Kyle. It's been a heavy week, but happy to be in studio with you and talking BYU sports as we always do here on this program.
Good to be back with you, Mitch. It's a bummer that we don't have a football game to go down to like we've had the last couple of weeks there in Provo, but the bye came at a nice time for this BYU offense, I think, and I'm excited to talk about it as we have a week now to prepare for East Carolina.
It's going to be a loaded show as always. Tons of BYU football talk. We'll even work in some BYU basketball. There were some newsy items on the hardwood for the Cougs, so we'll hit on that and a whole lot more here on the show. But let's start things off with the starting lineup.
The starting lineup. A look at the stories making headlines right now. It's time for the starting lineup on Cougar Sports Saturday.
Okay, this is a little bit of a side story here. I want to ask you, the listeners, for those of you listening, driving around today, running your errands because it's a bye week. There's no BYU football today. There's college football, of course. I'm curious, Kyle. Let's ask Cougar Nation. What are you doing today on the bye week? And here's some of the options. Are you just doing your errands to get ready for Sunday? I think that was the children's hymn, right? What was the hymn? We do our tasks to get ready for Sunday. Wasn't that a children's hymn?
I tried to block that song out of my memory,
Okay.
Mitch.
Well,
I didn't like doing the household chores.
Okay.
I didn't like cleaning up the yard. You know, my mom and dad appreciated that song more than I did.
Okay, so that's an option. You're just tuning out football together, listening to us, part of your weekend.
Saturday is a special day. Thanks. Shout out to Nate Slack, our producer,
Yes.
giving us the title.
Saturday is a special day. It's the day we get ready for Sunday. Okay. Are you leaning into that today? Or are you going to watch East Carolina, BYU's next opponent, which takes place at 5:30? They're going to take on the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, which Cougar fans hate them. So you got a little bit of ability to kind of hate watch with Coastal Carolina. Or are you going to watch Utah, Wyoming? And are you going to watch it with the hopes of Wyoming pulling it out, or are you going to pull one of those conference pride shticks and say, I want the Big 12 to win, so I'm going to root for the Utes? Text us 57500. What are you doing on this BYU football bye week? I laughed when I said that because I feel like I know what Cougar Nation's answer is, but I'll let Cougar Nation respond. 57500, text us. And tell us what you're doing on this BYU football bye week.
What are you doing, Mitch? What are you doing tonight?
We're hosting this show, first off, till 3. But afterwards, I will be watching East Carolina because that's just kind of what I'm going to do because I want to see their next game or their latest game before they play BYU and see how it kind of plays out. Because anytime you're breaking down a game, you got to watch kind of the ebbs and flows, the personnel, the personnel groupings, how that all changes, how they're lining up schematically to kind of get a feel of what they do. And then is it completely different the following week? And you go, wow, this is very different than what they were doing in the previous game or games. So I will probably lean into East Carolina. What about you? Are you going to watch Powder River Letter Buck out in Laramie? What are you going to be doing tonight?
No, I'm going to the Jonas Brothers concert, man.
Okay, that's
I saved
that
my
wasn't
East
an option.
Yeah, I saved my East
Jonas
Carolina
Brothers.
watch. That's going to be like a Wednesday night activity for me this week.
Okay.
I don't need to watch East Carolina today. There's other games on that I'm more excited about.
Okay, that's fair. So what would be the game then that you would be more interested to watch? If you're a Cougar fan on a bye week, what game are you tuning into? Are you watching Utah, Wyoming?
Yeah, you've got to be watching Utah, Wyoming.
And who are you
man.
cheering for?
Everybody is cheering for Wyoming.
Right, that is the correct answer.
The answer is Wyoming.
So here's my thought to this. I was thinking about it. Do Cougar fans, part of them want Utah to keep winning, and BYU to keep winning to create potentially an undefeated game on October 18th, because that's not far away when you think about it. It's not like it's, the Saturday after Thanksgiving where that's a long ways. October 18th, that's about a month away. Part of you root for the Utes to hope for an undefeated clash in Provo? College game day, the national eyes are on Provo for BYU and Utah, or do you just want the laughs and have the memes just
that's like an argument from like 2008, watching the Sugar Bowl and being like, well, I want Utah to beat Alabama. And like, no. Like,
thank you for saying that, because that backfired.
Yeah.
In 2004, it was like, hey, let's root for the Mountain West because it's good for the conference. Maybe they'll get a BCS bid. That didn't help you at all.
You think anybody up on the hills like watching a BYU game and they're saying those kind of things? I have a hard time believing it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't think Utah will lose to Wyoming today, but I will say, since we are on the topic of this, was it not funny last night to see UCLA get blitzed by New Mexico? And you're kind of thinking, hey, maybe, just maybe. And I do think Utah's better this year. But maybe we should pump the brakes just a little bit on Utah being anointed this class of the Big 12 after their only win really being against UCLA, who's terrible. UCLA is going to go winless. They are awful. They might win in 2 weeks when they play Northwestern. Northwestern's not good either.
Maybe.
But they lost to New Mexico.
It's a bad football team.
So
Mitch.
I don't think Wyoming's going to beat Utah. I think Utah handles them. But maybe we should just pump the brakes a little.
Utah's offense is much improved. But UCLA, they might be, I don't know, bottom 5 FBS program this year. Mm-hmm. Bottom 10 at least. Well, and they're so bad.
I do like the poll, though, that you had about 2008, though, because that was a thing. Back when these two were in the Mountain West together, it was, well, let's get for the good of the conference. Let's go get that BCS auto bid and take down the Big East. And if Utah takes down Alabama, that means good things for BYU. And no, it didn't. No, it didn't. It only helped Utah's candidacy to go to the Pac-12, and then, of course, the BYU being a faith-based institution, never going to be in the mix for the Pac-12, but I digress.
It's one of those things where it's like a hierarchy of like ranking what you want from your opponents. Like, where does the rivalry rank versus having a conference foe, like, win a game? I think for the most part, the rivalry trumps everything, and then after that, you can be like, okay, if it's Kansas State playing, I don't know, some Big Ten team. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, like you want Kansas State to win that game, right? For potential reasons if you play them that season, obviously not this year. But like those are the kinds of things that I think that you could choose and justify, who you're rooting for outside of a BYU game. But the rivalry thing, like I think that has to trump everything for a BYU fan. You cannot go into a game watching Utah play X opponent and be like, oh yeah, like I'm going to want Utah to win that game. It goes against the fanhood.
Do you think Cougar fans will tune into that game, though? It's CBS Sports Network, so you got to go find it. It's not like it's easy to find CBS Sports Network. You got to go through whatever streaming service you got, and then you got to get that add-on to get CBS Sports Network. Like, do you think Cougar fans on their bye week, where there's no Cougar football, there's no turbulence, there's no Cougar tail consumption this weekend, they're going to sit down and hunker down and watch Utes take on the Pokes, a bunch of old Mountain West foes squaring off in Laramie? BYU experienced that last year. It was a little bit of a nostalgic trip.
No, I think so. I do think in 2025 you got the multi-view on the YouTube TV, so you can get East Carolina and Utah at the same time. You can be split screen watching. That's what I like doing. I know you're up that same stream there, Mitch. Yeah, I think that tonight there's going to be eyes on both of those games, a little channel, back and forth. But yeah, the Utah game will be on the eyes of BYU fans for sure.
I will say too, when you brought up the point about the Big 12 pride piece, I think that Cougar fans, for the most part, do cheer for the Big 12 in non-conference games. I think maybe there's an exception with Arizona State too. I don't know if it's anywhere near the Utah hatred, but that BYU ASU game, they felt a little bit intense last year, to where maybe there's some carryover where Cougar fans are not cheering for the Sun Devils. I was cheering for them last week. I wanted to see them get that win.
Do you think they feel that way about like Kansas too then? It's like anytime a special season is ruined by a program, it's like you're forever an enemy.
I think Kansas, it was just like BYU played bad, and Kansas was on fire that month. They were the giant killer in the Big 12, knocking off Colorado. They had another win too. I can't remember who it was. They took down BYU. I think that's just self-inflicted wounds in many respects by BYU, whereas Arizona State, it was the loss paired up with the classless behavior of the fans, and I think that creates a little bit of the feelings of, I'm not going to
the field.
I'm not going to cheer for you, because I think Cougar fans, they can take a loss. They can move on from L's, and because they're going to still show up. It's not going to be like the Rose Bowl last night where there's 400 fans in attendance. BYU fans show up no matter what the circumstances are for their team. So they can move on from losses, but when you disrespect the institution, the faith, and are classless to BYU, then it becomes like, hey, we're not cheering for you, I think, for Cougar fans. And that's what kind of happened with Arizona State. I don't know if that's happened yet, because I still think there's this feeling in the Big 12 Conference where they're out to prove that this league is better than people give them respect. But still, I don't know if Cougar fans are pulling that card anymore for the Utes, and to a lesser degree, Arizona State.
I also think that you have to factor in what BYU has been through for the last couple of decades. You weren't doing this as a BYU fan in the WAC era, the Mountain West era. It's because of independence and what happened from that. Cougar Sports Saturday. Welcome back in. Kyle Ireland, Mitch Harper alongside for the ride today. It's a bye week for BYU football, Mitch, but they started off the season 2-0 after following up their win over Portland State with a win over Stanford a week ago. What are your expectations for BYU football now that they've opened the season 2-0? Have they changed at all? I mean, I feel like going into the year, we talked about, the non-conference slate going into the Colorado game in a couple of weeks and where BYU would be at from what we had, preseason expectation-wise. Did you think the 2-0 was going to happen the way that it did? Have things played out so far? And then also, have things changed in your mind for what you think this BYU team can be in 2025?
It's been better than expected, honestly. To go pretty much flawless against Portland State, 69-0, I thought that was impressive. And I know Portland State is terrible, and they're not a good football team, and I acknowledge that. But, again, they were just flawless. And then I think with Stanford, it's kind of what I expected, where there's going to be some ups and downs. Like things that we saw in fall camp showed up against Stanford, where they're not finishing drives, they're not punching it into the red zone. That happened against Stanford. And it's a learning opportunity. But the nice thing is that BYU at no point in that game against Stanford felt like they were stressed. And Kalani Sitake pointed to that. I thought that was noteworthy because it allowed them a situation where, Bear Bachmeier, again, was comfortable. He didn't seem sped up. And I like, too, that the fact that Bear Bachmeier through 2 weeks is not fumbling the football, and he's had a lot of runs. He's taken some sacks. That blindside hit, he still takes care of the football. So I just think that BYU is doing a really nice job. And I think what's really showing up, too, as it kind of has become the case for BYU really the last handful of years, is the physicality, and Kalani Sitake is definitely happy where that's at.
We knew going into the game, Stanford was going to be really, really physical, and they're going to try to establish a physical presence at the line of scrimmage and offense and defense, and so as much as they can do with special teams. And I thought our team was really physical in all three phases, and that we can build off of that. Saw it on film, and really impressed with our team and the way the coaches prepped them. That was good. We needed that game. And so looking forward to building on it and getting better.
I think that is something that does show up because Stanford, as we talked about on this show last week, their defense had some individual personnel, and I thought they had a pretty good scheme going into that game against BYU. So credit to Stanford. I think their defense could put them in a spot to maybe win, 3 games maybe this year. Again, I don't think Stanford's going to be anywhere near a bowl game, most likely, I would think. I'd be pretty stunned if they go bowling after an 0-2 start, but they brought a lot of looks at BYU, and BYU had a great learning opportunity for Bear Bachmeier. You just want to see, Kyle, a little bit more explosive playmaking ability from the passing game because Kalani's best teams have always had that, and at some point that's going to have to turn the corner. Do you factor in just conservative play calling? Sure, I think that plays a role, but okay, let's start turning it up a little bit. Let's start seeing less conservative. Let's full systems go, and let's start stretching that field.
I know this is something that you've kind of pointed out consistently over the last few seasons, Mitch, in order to win in this conference in the Big 12, you have to have stellar quarterback play. You have to be able to throw the ball. And BYU, that's, been a calling card for 40 years, Oh,
yeah.
BYU's been able to throw the football. And
50 years.
The teams that have not been effective and have won games for BYU in, said seasons have been the teams that have struggled at the quarterback position. They've struggled to throw the ball. So I would like to see that happen with BYU's offense as well. I'd like to see them open things up. I saw, a little bit more against Stanford than we did against Portland State. It felt like they just needed to get Bear out on the field against Portland State. He only threw the ball 11 times, went 7 of 11. Last week, throws the ball, 27 times, and he's up to almost 300 yards for the season. But BYU's been able to run the football as well. So, that's that fine balance of a battle where you want to have a balanced offense. You've got an awesome running back in LJ Martin who's got 241 yards on the season. I think that it's Aaron Roderick kind of using the run to set up the pass, using LJ Martin, his effectiveness on the ground, and he's on pace for a really, really special season. Already has a career high for a single game against Portland State, and he's probably going to break that again this season. I think that BYU, though, in order to really stand out and have an effective conference, record, is going to need to have Bear Bachmeier get in sync with these wideouts. I just, against Stanford, that's one of the things that I just felt that was off maybe, was the connection with the wideouts, and hopefully that's something that they can work on this week as a bye.
And that's going to be it's something that's retooled a little bit, that wide receiver unit, because JoJo Phillips banged up. He's out for the East Carolina game and probably going to be out for an extended period of time. Kalani Sitake on JoJo Phillips and his injury that was a shoulder injury that he suffered in the first half against Stanford.
That was unfortunate what happened to JoJo, but we're hoping to get him back sometime during the season. Obviously not for this next game, but this is an opportunity for guys like Cody Hagan to step up, and guys like Tiger Bachmeier and Tay Nakua. Reggie Frischnick is going to have an opportunity too. So that, along with Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston, it's going to be good. And we've seen some really good things from our tight end group too. Carson Ryan starting to catch some balls, and it's all coming together. But when one goes down, as unfortunate as it is in football, it's a violent sport and injuries do happen. It gives an opportunity for the next guys, and so I'm hoping. We have depth in all our positions, and you don't want to always rely on it, but it's good to have that depth just in case things like this happen. So hoping to get JoJo back as soon as we can. And but until that happens, I think the other guys are going to have to step up.
That sound was on our sibling station, the KSL Sports Zone. Kalani hopped on and discussed JoJo Phillips, who JoJo, of course, shared a post on social media that he went into surgery because after the Stanford game, he's just in a sling. You think, okay, maybe it's a short-term deal, but then it becomes surgery, and it's much more intense when it comes to that with JoJo Phillips. So BYU will have to retool, and then you pair it up with the fact that Chase Roberts had a drop in the red zone last week. Parker Kingston hasn't had a great start this season. The hierarchy at the wide receiver spot will be interesting going into next week at East Carolina.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
Touchdown! Stayed inside the boundary and gets in for 6.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Richie right to the rim, driving score! He would not be denied!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Sponsored by Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Kyle Ireland. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into the show. Cougar Sports Saturday, sponsored by Any Hour Services, electric, plumbing, heating, and air. Right now we're watching a little Clemson, Georgia Tech, ACC action, Mitch. You got Clemson, who might be losing a second game in a row. My gosh. The rankings, Mitch, well, I know we'll talk about it later on in the show, but these early season games, it's a filling out period for college football fans watching teams. It's like, oh, is this brand name team going to be good? Is it this preseason ranking going to hold up? These expectations, we're still kind of filling things out, and I don't think we know a lot about a lot of teams, including BYU early on 2 weeks into the season.
Yeah, we have really no idea, and I think it's been fascinating. We'll get to it a little bit later, but the AP poll is under fire more than ever before because just some of the practices with the poll and how it's handled and the voting, and it's due for some criticisms more than ever before in an era where the transfer portal and these rosters are so new year to year and just teams change. And so you got to be willing to maybe be more patient with not having preseason polls, but we'll get some more of the headlines surrounding the AP Top 25 poll coming up a little bit later. But want to dive into what's trending up and trending down for BYU football after the first two games with a early bye week, which kind of frustrating, honestly. I was seeing Colorado play Houston last night. I thought to myself, why couldn't BYU play Colorado in week 3 with the Big 12? Like, that would have been an awesome showcase game. Play it in Boulder Friday night. Why not play BYU and Colorado? Why instead does the Big 12 go to Houston, Colorado instead and force BYU in an early bye? But whatever. It happens. It's fine. I guess it allows – in many respects it maybe worked this week because I'm sure there's been high emotions with the tragic political assassination of Charlie Kirk being so close to campus in Provo. I'm sure there were BYU players that knew – people that maybe attended that. Who knows if there was anyone attended? I mean, it was a very emotional, heavy week for everyone around the country. That I'm sure it was probably good to maybe have a little bit of time off and to let everyone have their mentals in order and everyone be okay in that space and then get ready for a 2 time zone game next week. But still, it's an early bye week, which is so different. A couple years ago, it was, it's game number 11 with Georgia Southern, and BYU still hasn't had a bye. They'd have to get a late November bye because Independence was brutal with scheduling. So they're in a bye week this weekend. And for you, Kyle, after a 2-0 start where BYU has looked impressive in really both games, I know there's things to nitpick in the Stanford game, but by all accounts, BYU's been pretty impressive. What do you feel is trending up for the Cougs after this 2-0 start?
We've talked about this BYU defense and how they're probably the best that Kalani Sitake's had in his 10 seasons now at BYU. But specifically for me is the BYU safety group. I thought that Faletau Satuala and Raider Dumuni were spectacular against Stanford. And they've been good through the first 2 games as well, but you saw the turnovers that were forced against the Cardinal and that safety with Satuala coming into the end zone, knocking the ball free. I think that group, I mean, you also have Tanner Wall there. You've got Tommy Prasis, who's been used at that nickel spot as well. You've got a lot of talent, I think, on the back end of that defense. That secondary has some real potential to be one of those kind of star units that carries BYU throughout this season. I don't know if they're going to, put up the turnover numbers that they did a season ago. I don't know if that's to be expected as far as interceptions are concerned because this defensive line is also better than it was a season ago, in my opinion. But this safety group, I think, is trending up right now, and I'm excited to see what they do once, you start facing some better opponents, some better quarterback play as we get into conference games. That
position had high expectations coming in, but I think you're right that they're even better than we were expecting coming into the season. And look, Raider Dumuni had probably the easiest interception he'll get in his football career.
Yeah.
Dr. Ben, bad.
Right
Stanford, if you're listening, just bench Dr. Ben. That was the worst quarterback play I think I've seen in years from a power conference quarterback. It was bad. It was terrible.
You were in awe and shock after the game that they didn't make a switch.
I couldn't believe it. It was just like, what are you doing, Stanford? Do you have any hope of winning games? Anyway, but I think the safeties definitely have impressed. I think for me, trending up, and I look at this kind of at maybe a deeper level with just the 2-0 start and then kind of focusing in on the level of the opponents, just the alignment on the coaching staff. Kalani talked about coming into the season how big of a deal it was to retain the entire staff. And I bring this up because I think it's easy to point sometimes to the maddening play calls sometimes with the offense. I know Cougar fans, it's sometimes mixed feelings with Aaron Roderick's offense. There's sometimes brilliant days. There's other days where it can be a little bit frustrating. And I think during that game against Stanford, the offense, let's call it what it is, was not playing great. They weren't finishing drives. They weren't coughing up the football, which was great. But they just weren't explosive outside of L.J. Martin. But I think that this coaching staff is not pointing fingers. It's not offense versus defense. They're all in alignment. They've all worked together for years, even before their time at BYU, and they play complementary football, and it works into the special teams as well, and they're all on the same page. And I just think that works very well when you have years where you're going to have rosters that get overhauled, and you're going to have new faces. You got to bring them up to speed quick, and in this case, that's more evident than ever before with a true freshman quarterback who arrived in late May, getting him up to speed. This whole staff is on the same page. They've been here before, and I just think that's kind of standing out to me. And they've been able to kind of tune out any sort of outside noise of the nitpicky nature of the offense. They're all in alignment, and they all believe in Kalani. They all want to be at BYU right now, and it's working quite well. And I just think they all mesh together nicely. And, Kalani pointed to that again in the summer, and I think it's showing up to me as a bigger deal than maybe I thought, just retaining everyone and having that continuity, how each other bounce off ideas from each other. I think it's working quite well for that entire coaching staff. So that's what's trending up for me. What about trending down for you?
Yeah, just to touch on that real quick, too. I think about what Falatau Satuala said after the game against Stanford about Jay Hill and having that defense, having those guys prepared. Like, they knew what was coming, according to Falatau.
Yeah.
That was a key note for me, that this coaching staff is so locked in that they've been together. They know everything about how each other operates, that I think that's a good reason for them to be trending up as well, Mitch. But trending down for me is this wideout group. These wide receivers need to step it up. You mentioned the drop that Chase had at the goal line against Stanford. You didn't have any receiving touchdowns. You didn't have any touchdowns thrown by Bear Bachmeier against Stanford. That just needs to take a step up. I don't blame Bear for this at all. I think it's just a matter of getting that chemistry built with his wideouts. I think that you need to have, especially with JoJo Phillips going down to injury, you need to have Chase take his game to another level. Parker Kingston has kind of been a non-factor. Obviously, he's dropped the ball as far as a returner is concerned, but in the receiving game hasn't been a factor. I think that Carson Ryan, he needs to be utilized more as a weapon as a tight end. I know that he's not necessarily a wide receiver, but a receiving option there for Bear Bachmeier to throw the ball to. I just think that there's more that needs to come out of that passing game, and especially with having Bear Bachmeier only 2 games under his belt, these wide receivers need to step up their game and help Bear out.
Well, and also, too, you just look at they lose JoJo Phillips, and he was the top target for Bear Bachmeier. 7 targets in that game against Stanford. Clearly, the relationship and chemistry that he was developing with JoJo Phillips was pretty evident in fall camp, and that carried over into the season. Now he's gone, and then you point at what would be maybe the projected starting 3 in Roberts and Kingston, and then if you want to go, Cody Hagan, Roberts and Kingston have had moments where they're dropping. Now, Roberts is still your number 1 guy overall. No question. He's still got 6 catches, 88 yards, and a touchdown, that first touchdown of the season against Portland State in week 1. But, they got to get better. They just and even Chase kind of gave a little bit of an enlightening comment after the Stanford game where he's like, it takes time. And I thought it was interesting just because we've just been told that, it's all up to speed and it's all systems go. Like, well, no, it's not. It's taking time. So I think we have to expect sometimes there will be days where you got to rely on the defense. And because there might just be a day where the offense is not necessarily not able to move the chains, but just maybe they're not finishing drives and getting into the end zone as we saw against Stanford. But Chase was pretty open, I thought, about that commentary after the Stanford game. But they do need to step it up going forward. I think for me, what's trending down is just ball security in the punt return game. Parker Kingston back-to-back weeks punt return, but then also Tiger Bachmeier, who Kelly Papinga said is probably going to be the guy moving forward. He said that in the coordinator's corner this week. His first punt return was a loss of 10 yards. It was poor decisions against Portland State. He was trying to do a little bit too much. And then he had that dynamic punt return, 47 yards against Stanford last week. But still, better be good there. I think honestly, the guy that's been the best for the first 2 weeks at punt returns, honestly, Kenan DeVries, who had those 2 punt returns against Portland State. If Tiger, if you get anointed the guy, take care of that football. The program is in your hands. I always point to that when Kalani was talking about Jake Retzloff a couple years ago. The program is in your hands, and Kalani hits on that all the time, is ball security. And when you put the ball on the ground, you're putting the program on the ground. You're putting the fan base on the ground, and that can't happen. So They got to get better on that regard and be dynamic, because even last year, too, Parker Kingston had that punt return for a touchdown against K-State. It was a muffed punt. So you got to take care of the football. And so whoever gets that role, expected to be Tiger Bachmeier going forward, take care of the football in the punt return game. That's critical for BYU going forward. We're taking a break. Cougar Sports Saturday rolls on here on this Saturday, September 13th. We're coming to you live from Broadcast House in Salt Lake City. It's a busy weekend of college football. Not many glamorous matchups in the Big 12 Conference as we take a look around the Big 12 in Week 3 action around the league. We've already got 2 notable games in the books in the Big 12 that took place last night. Colorado, who BYU will face 2 weeks from today in Boulder. The Buffs lose at Houston 36-20. I'm not shocked by this, Kyle. I think Houston's pretty decent this year, honestly. And Colorado, I don't think they're I was maybe a little bit more bullish on them coming into the year. I'm kind of recalibrating my expectations for Colorado. BYU should win that game in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I think that Wyoming game will be interesting, but that Colorado
Wyoming game
for Colorado.
Yes.
I think I'm not talking about Utah with Wyoming. But I think that game will be interesting there on ESPN next week. Depending on how Wyoming plays today, I think that could factor into how they play against Colorado. But BYU should definitely win that game. I think after seeing the lackluster offense that Colorado has put out there through 3 games, 2 of them, they have not looked impressive in at all. And I think that BYU showed what kind of a defensive performance they can put up against them with even a better defense this year than they had against them in the Alamo Bowl.
What's so weird, though, about college football, it's you can't do it like this and size up teams this way because teams change week after week. But Colorado lost to Georgia Tech in the season opener, barely lost to them. Georgia Tech right now is up 21-14 with 9 minutes to go on Clemson, who I thought Clemson could be a national title contender. It's so hard to gauge these teams anymore in college football. It's just difficult, but Colorado takes the L. Houston, here's a crazy thought. Could Houston be this year's Arizona State?
It's a possibility. I mean,
They look good.
They've got the money behind that program, too, to become a power in this conference. I think that's something that has to be, a main factor when you look at how teams can be built out in the current NIL era of what college football is today. Houston 3-0 to start the season. I like what the Cougars have been, even as an American program. I thought that they were one of those games that I liked BYU scheduling Houston, coming into Provo, going down to Houston, Clutch City. That game on the road for Colorado last night, I wonder how much they just need to get back at home, get some things settled, figure out what that quarterback position looks like for the Buffs going into the conference schedule. And then you've got last night another game. You had K-State playing Arizona, not a conference game, even though it's a conference matchup there. K-State, Mitch, they look bad. That team is night and day different than what they were a season ago, falling to Arizona on the road 23-17. I think Arizona looks pretty good, though. Noah Fafita, going into the portal, coming back to Arizona. They've got some consistency now, it seems like, to start off the year. I wonder how they'll fare in Big 12 play.
Yeah, I think Arizona could be a pleasant surprise. I mean, that October 11th game between BYU and Arizona, that could be 2 undefeated teams, potentially, between BYU and Arizona. I thought Avery Johnson last night was bad. 88 passing yards for K-State. They're 1-3, and I feel like the season's lost for K-State. I think it's over for Kansas State, to be quite honest with you. Their defense is not good. They could not stop Noah Fafita on the ground. He had 48 rushing yards, but then also Ismail Mahdi for Arizona had 189 rushing yards. K-State, I thought they were a physical defense. Coming out of Ireland, no, smoke and mirrors, man. It's not carrying over. And look, in this college football where you can have the clock, opponents can just eat up that clock with no stoppage after first downs. That's what happened to them last week against Army, where they barely had the football and they lost that game. But I just think Kansas State feels like a broken team right now. That Ireland deal, whatever happens to the team that loses in Ireland, it's a curse, man, because Kansas State looks nothing like the program we've kind of been accustomed to since BYU joined the Big 12. They're off to a 1-3 start. Some other games in action right now. It's light in the morning slate. Samford and Baylor. Baylor hosting Samford. This was kind of interesting early on. Baylor jumped out to a 14-0 lead. Then Samford scored 14-7. And then Samford was on the move inside the red zone. They had a turnover. And Baylor needed some, flags from the refs to extend a drive. Baylor kind of struggled early. Now they're up big on Samford. Some other games to kind of keep an eye on. Texas Tech hosts Oregon State. They will take on the Beavs in Lubbock. It'll be maybe is there going to be a look ahead possibly for Texas Tech before they host or before they take on Utah next week up the road here in Salt Lake, which just got announced today. That's going to be big noon kickoff, 10 a.m. kick in Salt Lake for the Red Raiders and Utes. And then West Virginia, backyard brawl against Pitt. Any other games catch your attention on this week's slate around the Big 12?
Yeah, we talked about Utah going up the road to Wyoming, playing there in Laramie. Revival of sorts for the WAC and Mountain West days. Utes versus Cowboys there. I think that the Texas State Arizona State game tonight will be one that I'll watch. I like the late games, Mitch. I like, especially if my dream scenario is like a BYU game at 1 o'clock. Get home, wrap up the post game, and then you just enjoy the evening. Going into like the midnight 1 o'clock games that you stay up late because like I've got the adrenaline rush still. So even Texas State, Arizona State will be a game to watch there late. But yeah, I think that one of the things, Mitch, that I a couple weeks into the season now am feeling is just like I'm ready for conference play. I'm ready to get into a flow. We talked about this off the air. It's just like the slow ramp up period with the non-conference getting into Big 12 play because BYU fans are so used to having big non-conference games to start off the season. There's a lot of hype. There's the big matchups that you'll have. You'll have these NFL stadium games. You'll have like a Wisconsin. Those games that people are excited about in September, and then the November slate ends up being terrible. It's like a reverse now. So it's really just managing expectations for what a season is as the ramp up period builds into Big 12 play.
When you look ahead at BYU's schedule, they've got East Carolina next week, 5:30 kick. We will be in Greenville, North Carolina, both you and I. We'll get Cougar Sports Saturday rolling at high noon from Greenville, North Carolina. Next week, kickoff at 5:30. Then at Colorado, 8:15 p.m. on September 27th. Then General Conference weekend, BYU hosts West Virginia on the Friday before General Conference, 8:30 p.m. But then it gets interesting. October 11th all the way to TCU on November 15th. That is a gauntlet for BYU in Big 12 play. You've got Arizona, Utah, Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU. All those teams right now are currently undefeated. 3 of them are currently ranked. Arizona, maybe they could be knocking on the door of the rankings this week. TCU blew the doors off North Carolina. They've only played 1 game so far this season, but that's going to be a stretch, man. That is going to be as tough of a 5-game stretch maybe in the history of BYU football, because that will be week after week. That'll test BYU like no other. And then even that 6th game, Cincinnati on the road. Cincinnati, pretty decent too. It's going to ramp up, but I do believe, Kyle, that BYU could jump out to a 5-0 start. I think that's very manageable. East Carolina, they should be a favorite, big favorite next week. I think they're going to be a favorite at Colorado. West Virginia is a mess right now. They lost their star running back, Jaheim White. So I think BYU's in a good spot to really get things rolling. And then at Arizona, October 11th is really when the season ramps up. Like they're all of these games are huge. Don't get me wrong, but I just think that 5-game stretch from October 11th to November 15th is going to be as taxing of a stretch that BYU's probably ever had, at least in the Kalani era. There's been some, I go back to like the days of Ty Detmer with that season 91 where they opened up with, I think it was Penn State, UCLA, Florida State, insane stretch. When UCLA was UCLA, when it wasn't this Deshaun Foster nonsense where they're terrible, when they were actually good. But yeah, this will be a good schedule for BYU that'll test them. So this notion that, it's the weakest schedule in the Big 12, no, it's clearly shown to be much more difficult than people realized.
Yeah, you've got if you mentioned those games there, you've got 4 of them on the road. If you include Cincinnati, you've also got the Utah game in the mix there. I think the big key for BYU is to maintain momentum as you get into that stretch, because you don't want it to be like 2023 where they end the season on a 5-game losing streak. But we're up against it. We're going to come back and we're going to hear a little bit more about this Big 12 conference. You're listening to Cougar Sports Saturday, powered by KSL Sports.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
That's caught! Touchdown! Stayed inside the boundary and gets in for 6.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Richie right to the rim, driving score! He would not be denied!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Sponsored by Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Kyle Ireland. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back in KSL News Radio and KSL Sports. It's BYU football bye week, but of course we're always talking BYU football and the Big 12 Conference. And joining me now to talk BYU and the Big 12, I'm joined now by Ari Temkin, host on Big 12 Radio. You can catch him daily on Big 12 Today, 6 to 9 a.m. on TuneIn. Always good stuff checking in on the Big 12. I've seen Ari many a times, whether at Big 12 Media Day, Big 12 Spring Meetings. Good to chat here on Cougar Tracks. Ari, appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, and let me just say, you were one of the very few other publications at the spring meetings for the Big 12 in Orlando. So shout out to KSL. We know that BYU media travels and goes to a lot of events, but that's huge. And especially given like it was Big 12 radio and then local Orlando, UCF, and then you. So again, that, shout out to KSL Sports for doing that, because, that's an investment, and they're investing in the product and in, the overall coverage. And so like, we should applaud that, because that's not a given in today's world. It used to be that, of course, you traveled, and I'm sure that like spring meetings were flush with writers from across the Big 12, but that was just not the case this year. And so I'm glad you were there. It was great to see you, and and hopefully more of those as well.
I agree. And maybe this ties into the media aspect and everything, looking at the Big 12 football. Again, Ari Temkin here on KSL Sports. I look at the AP Top 25, and there was that viral video of a reporter out in California who kind of danced around her raising behind the AP poll. But it feels like Big 12 teams have a tighter margin for error than other leagues. ASU goes on the road in the SEC, and they instantly fall out of the poll. Why do you think that is? Why is the image of the Big 12 there's such a thin margin for error for these teams in this league?
Yeah, and Michigan has no business being in the top 25, and yet, based on recruiting rankings, that's why they've stuck there. And to your point, with Arizona State going from 12 to outside the poll is egregious. Why do I think that is? I think there's a perception bias. I think a big part of what goes into the AP voting, and especially for a preseason, is recruiting rankings. So fair or not, how much talent you have relative to the rest of the country matters, and the Big 12 is not the best conference in terms of recruiting rankings. Some good players in the conference, and obviously it's on the uptick when you look at kind of the future of recruiting in the Big 12, specific to BYU and to Texas Tech. But there's the blue chip ratio, Mitchell, which I'm sure you know about, but for your listeners, basically Bud Elliott from CBS Sports, 24/7 Sports, came up with this stat that holds true. Basically, in the modern recruiting rankings, if 50% of your roster is not 4 or 5-star recruits over a 4-year period, you cannot win a national championship. And it's not a predictive metric, but it is a tool of analysis. Teams have won playoff games. They've gotten to the playoff being short of that threshold, but never won. And obviously TCU is an example of that. So every team that's won a national championship, basically in the modern recruiting rankings, which stretches back 3 decades, has had at least 50% of the roster be 4 or 5-star recruits over a 4-year period. So, I think that plays a huge role in this. Should it? No. Maybe a little bit, but that's really the only reasonable explanation. That as a tiebreaker, that the AP voters and subsequently the college football playoff voters believe that the other conferences, specific SEC, Big Ten, and then some of the ACC schools that are recruiting at that level are just better based on the level of NFL talent that they have, as opposed to the NFL level of NFL talent that they have and their resume. And the other thing is, I think, while the AP should vote in the preseason poll, I think you should restack the deck following week one, meaning even if you were ranked, I don't think you should fall after a loss. I think you completely restart. And because, you have these preseason expectations of certain teams, and who knows if those are true. And so the preseason being the starting point, I think it's a good starting point, but I think you start over after week one, and then you can move the chess pieces around following that. So there's definitely a perception issue with the Big 12. I think being more top heavy would help fix that. I think having more consistency at the top would help fix that. Being a league of parity does not help that. And then, of course, the recruiting rankings, I think, play a crucial role in that too.
It is interesting with the recruiting rankings. BYU last week, they're facing a team in Stanford who talent composite in the top 50, 46th in 24/7 Sports, while BYU 70th. Their recruiting for BYU hasn't been great in past years by the star ratings yet. In the future, it appears it's going to be better with guys like Ryder Lyons in the pipeline for BYU. Again, talk with Ari Temkin here on KSL
Mitch,
Sports.
Real quickly, to your point, that looked like a huge talent discrepancy between two teams. But the opposite of how you've just described it.
It's amazing.
BYU is not going to get much credit for beating Stanford, and yet they probably should.
They really should. And that's what's frustrating, I think, with the Big 12 is that I think there's good football in this league, and you're covering it every single day. I see BYU, but I'm trying to watch as much Big 12 as possible. And I've quickly learned in these 3 years there is great depth. There's great coaching in this conference, yet it just seems to always get overlooked. And maybe that was a case of when the league was created in 96, it just wasn't always in the marketed TV windows to really build up these followings, but there's good football in this league.
Yeah, and look, I know I've talked about this with other people from BYU. It's like two lost souls here. This, as we're talking through the Big 12, should not be a surprise to BYU fans, because I'm sure you're used to this. You're used to the perception of BYU being, they're not as good. They don't play a Power 4 schedule. BYU's history is littered with being underappreciated, in the national landscape. And so now they join a conference. You think, it's a Power 4 league. It should substantiate what they've done. And, BYU finds itself in the same spot that the Big 12 does. So it's like we've been lost souls, and now we've been united that, and in that. Look, I think the Big 12 does itself very little favors. It went 10-5 this week. There's some bad losses in there. It's not the only conference that has bad losses, but the Big 12 has now 3 losses to the SEC, including Arizona State and Mississippi State, a game that we certainly didn't expect Arizona State to lose in the preseason. I know it's on the road, but then Auburn going to Baylor and getting a win there. And then obviously Kansas losing to Mizzou, which is a game that I think, the line should indicate that people expected Mizzou to win that game. But Ohio beating West Virginia in a game where they had 3 second-half interceptions does not look great. And West Virginia's offense under Rich Rod looks atrocious after 2 weeks. Kansas State losing to Army at home does not bode well for the conference. It's not helped the perception of the conference. Army just lost to Tarleton State. So we could talk about a new quarterback that started the game for Army this week that was a lot better, but that doesn't matter. It's all the perception issue. So going 10-5, having 2 losses to group of 6 teams, having your last year's champion lose to a team that went, had 2 wins last year in Mississippi State does not bode well. So the problem is the Big 12 has not done itself favors. It needed to be pretty much flawless in the non-conference, and it's been pretty consistent with what we've seen. Some surprising group of 6 losses in there. We've seen that the last couple of years, and then, not playing well in the biggest games against the biggest opponents.
That's Ari Temkin with Big 12 Radio. Appreciate him hopping on to talk Big 12 football with me this week, and you can listen to that full interview on the Cougar Tracks podcast feed.
Cougar Sports Saturday, Kyle Ireland alongside Mitch Harper. Mitch, we've got a minute to go here. We're watching Clemson, Georgia Tech.
Crazy football game.
Georgia Tech looking like they're driving for potential score here to maybe kick a game-winning field goal, score a touchdown or something here and put Clemson at 1-2 on the season. My gosh, that would be crazy. And it does speak to, the fact that the AP poll doesn't mean a lot the first month of the season.
It does not. And we teased it earlier. There has been a lot of scrutiny, backlash given to AP voters. And for Cougar fans, they're upset because, BYU's not ranked after a season where you go 11-2. And that builds a lot of the preseason narratives, is what you did last year. Go 11-2. You're off to a 2-0 start where you beat your opponents 96-3 through the first 2 weeks. What else do you got to do to get ranked? Well, maybe the most egregious voting mishap was courtesy of Haley Sawyer, USC beat writer, Southern California News Group. She did an interview with USCHoops.com, and she had a ranking where she ranked the Florida Gators number 14, moved them up from number 16 to number 14 after losing to the USF Bulls. She didn't rank the USF Bulls, who have now defeated teams that were ranked in the AP poll, Boise State and Florida. She was asked on this USCHoops.com podcast a side storyline about her AP voting and how that came to be and the reaction to that. And this was her commentary. This was Haley Sawyer from the Southern California News Group.
But as far as what my votes are and what my process is, I wake up early in the morning after covering a game late in the night before. Don't want to go too much into my progress or process or logic, but I will say I appreciate everybody's interaction on social media and all of your feedback. There's tons of people that vote on the AP poll, and it's not a perfect system, but at the end of the day, no matter who you pick, it does even out because there's so many people who vote. And like I said, it's really fun for discussion. It doesn't, probably matter in the end, but I'm glad that people are having a really good time with it.
Are you kidding me? It doesn't matter in the end. The only poll that has a final ranking in college football is the AP poll, not the college football playoff. The AP is the only one that has a final ranking. So when BYU points to its top 15 finish, they're referencing the AP poll. The AP poll, sadly, matters a ton. And as someone, that attitude blew me away. And honestly, that commentary from Haley Sawyer, no one should have personal attacks and treat her poorly. And honestly, if she had an oversight where she just accidentally ranked Florida instead of USF, just admit that. Don't double down and say, I'm hiding from my process. I don't want to tell you about my process. Don't give me that. The AP poll is so frustrating. Our guy Nate Slack's been calling these people out for years. Every Sunday morning, I'm seeing Nate just take these people to task on all their polls. Oh, this guy from Reno has moved BYU down after a 10-point win. He moves them down to 8 spots. Huh? Nate's always holding these people accountable. Now they're finally getting up to speed with Nate. Just like Nate was the CEO of the night game stats for BYU. Now everyone got up to speed. Now they're Nate's saying, I told you all. Call these people out. The AP poll, we need to end the preseason rankings, Kyle. It needs to end. It needs to stop because people are trying to validate their preseason feelings about teams before toe meets leather.
It's not a perfect system because of her commentary. It's the attitude like that where it's not even owning the mistake. It's doubling down. You shouldn't have a vote then if that's how you view the process.
Right.
If it's not a big deal and it's it'll play itself out. It only plays itself out because that's the way that the system is set up to be.
And I hate, too, that the AP poll, and I love the ranking in college football because it is a cool thing. But it helps build up the perception of your team. That poll matters a ton. And if you got a bunch of people that honestly don't have the time to actually watch these games, and look, as someone who covers a team extensively, one team extensively, I feel like I can speak to this. If you go on a game day, as a person who covers one team, you don't see many games. You really don't. You've got to get people in the AP poll that honestly can hunker down, see the entire game. Maybe you collaborate with these programs, say, hey, can I get some all-22 film to break it down afterwards? because you're really not getting the chance to watch games live. If you're actually going into a press box and covering a game, you don't have the time to go watch these games. You just don't. Like I vote in a poll, the Super 16, with the Football Writers Association of America. There's some College Football Hall of Famers in it. It's really cool. I love being part of it. After the Stanford game, I came home. I stayed up till almost 5 a.m. because I was like, I got to dive into all these games to get a real understanding before I put together this ballot. I do not want to have an oversight and forget someone. 16 teams is a little bit easier to rank than 25. I had USF just barely outside my top 16. But I just think that you've got to take this serious because there are so many people that would kill for that vote, for her ballot, that AP top 25. Like, I go into stuff like, okay, the stuff rate of a game, the advanced stats of a game, and then watch the highlights, the cut-ups. I'm watching as much as I can to get a real feel for how that game played out, because sometimes you watch a box score, and it's like, that doesn't tell you the full story. Yes, they only maybe won 27-3, but they really dominated that game convincingly. So that's where voters got to get out of this mindset. It's like, it doesn't really matter. Like, yes, it does. It matters a ton. It's infuriating, and I don't know how it changes, because ultimately the AP is always going to want to have this vote because it gives them some power still. It gives the media some real leverage a bit. And look, I want the media to have as much access as possible. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to go back to a world where the AP, we used to live in a world where the AP was deciding the national champion. These voters, that clip, they were deciding the national champion. When BYU won the 84 title, that's how the champion was decided. I don't want to go back to that.
And even in the BCS era, it played into the computer formula as well.
The coaches poll did, yes.
These polls are just...
The coaches poll is worse. It's worse because that's the SIDs.
Yeah, they're not even watching the game because they're busy coaching and getting ready for the next game after their game's over and whatnot. Do you think that if they moved the ranking release from Sunday to Monday, that would do anything, Mitch? To be able to give people some more time to watch these games back or look at some box scores, some results, and just kind of dive in a little bit more than, coming home from a late game and they're tired, they're getting, whether it be a story or a news piece out or something, and then, just trying to move on to the next day.
I think that's a great point. Have it released Mondays, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 5 a.m.
Nothing changes between Sunday and Monday.
And then you've got the chance to go into your Monday press conferences and have that ranking and get it all teed up. But honestly, I think the perfect solution is to not put out rankings until week 6 or 7. I just did it again.
100%. I love it.
I had to do the 6-7. I had to do that. But wait till week 7. Wait till week 8. Because, look, we just watched this now, moments ago. Georgia Tech just took down Clemson, 24-21.
Hey, that's a top 10 Clemson team you just watched lose.
And Clemson's good. They got a ton of talent, but why not rank Georgia Tech now top 10? They won't, though. They beat Colorado on the road, a power conference team. They beat Clemson. They got a good resume. They won't rank them top 10. But it's like, well, Clemson's not good enough now because they're in the ACC. It's just it's insane to me.
It skews up how the college football playoff is viewed as well, because the rankings that are from the AP are closely aligned with that comes out with the college football playoff rankings later on in this season as well. And so it's this preseason narrative that carries all the way through into November and affects the playoff as well. And so you're starting off on a bad footing, Mitch, and it really just has a negative impact week after week after week. And if these voters from the AP and College Football Playoff Selection Committee truly looked at these games every single week and every single Saturday and Sunday, assessed the teams for what they are at that point in time, and really just erased 1 through 25 every week, then you could have a good system. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be certainly better than what it is right now.
Yeah, it's a debate that could go on for quite a while. Maybe we touch on it a little bit later in the show.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
That's caught! Touchdown! Stayed inside the boundary and gets in for 6.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Richie right to the rim, driving score! He would not be denied!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Sponsored by Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Kyle Ireland. on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Cougar Sports Saturday, sponsored by Any Hour Services, Electric Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Mitch Harper, Kyle Ireland, and our producer Nate Slack in studio here at Broadcast House in Salt Lake City. It's been a big week. This week, we're kind of some tech geeks here on the show. We like some new Apple devices. New iPhones rolled out. Did you get the new iPhone, Kyle?
I did. Woke up at
what color?
6 o'clock yesterday morning. I got orange.
And you're going with that bold orange.
I had to. I liked it. It was different. The Pro phones have been like just the boring, silver, black, whatever. This one has some pop to it. And as I was texting you the other day, I sent over what my model was that I got. And I had to throw out the BYU orange.
Yes. You're like
the throwbacks.
Duff Tittle would be proud of you that you trotted out the old orange.
People be like, that's not a BYU phone. Be like, most certainly it is.
Then you combine my purchase. I got the blue one, the iPhone 17 Pro Max.
Teaming up together.
We can team it up. Nate Slack, did you get the new iPhone this week?
No, I still got
Tito, let's get Nate's mic on.
Am
please.
I on?
Yes, he's on.
Okay, awesome. I've got the 16 Pro Max still, so I'm older, but
you wait.
still new.
Are you kind of like every 2 years guy too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to try to be like, every year I want to get the new iPhone, but now it's like I'll just wait every 2 years. Kind of on the odd numbers.
I have a problem.
Yeah,
I have a problem.
You were that chair. Just something about that chair makes people just hungry for every Apple device. You know what I'm hungry for? I'm hungry for a win in the top 5. And in this segment, Nate Slack puts together a list, whether it's opinion based, it could be fact based, it could just be something that's on top of mind for Nate Slack in his list. But this is going to be a game show every week, Kyle. You and I putting together trying to guess what Nate's list is for this top 5 here on the top 5 segment. You ready for this new era here on the show?
I'm a little afraid.
Why are you afraid?
I'm a little scared. I don't like the unknown. I'm a little hesitant, but bring it, Nate. Let's see what we got.
What's the list?
This is a good point because we always say that there's no notes, there's no tips or anything, and so during a commercial break, Kyle says, "Hey Nate, what's the top 5?" I don't disclose that; it's a secret.
I was like, Kyle, we don't.
We've got a rundown. It's just like blank under the top 5. Everything else has some stuff
just
for me to go off
truly nothing. There is no prep for this.
This is only show number 3 for me.
Yep, it's all off the cuff.
Gotta
man.
get the training wheels off, I guess.
Here we go. So this week, BYU's 24-point win against Stanford last week is tied for the 6th largest margin of victory for BYU versus P4 since the year 2000. So with that being number 6, we've got to go through 1 through 5.
Okay.
So the top 5, the 5 largest margins of victory for BYU against a P4 since 2000. So you got to give me the opponent and the year. So if you were to say Stanford 2025, that would be correct. If you said Stanford 2024, you don't get the point.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so we'll be starting with Kyle. Kyle's first time with the top 5, so we'll start out with Kyle today.
This is a game I was at, 59-0, UCLA 2008.
Okay.
That's an all-timer. I mean, that's got some great memories. I'll never forget BYU's up 35-0 in the second quarter, and the entire stadium is chanting, "Block that kick." And like Stanford's just, or UCLA's just trying to get on the scoreboard. But
I bought a shirt after that game. It was the two helmets facing against each other, and it said "A game for the ages." That shirt did not age well.
It did age well for BYU.
It's a great little nugget for history. But that UCLA team was not good.
Maybe you point to when you look at the history books of UCLA football and say, when did that program die? Maybe BYU killed it in 08. Maybe that's when it was. Okay.
All right, Mitch.
Good start, Kyle. See, you're ready for this. How about Virginia 2021? Oh.
Yeah, good guess, but not in the top 6. We have a 3-way tie for number 6. Stanford's one of the 3, but
okay.
My gosh, I might be blanking here. Oh, give me like a decade or something. Give me like a little.
No hints.
Come
this
on,
early, man.
No notes.
You got it.
You said since 2000.
Since 2000.
There's one more gimme.
I saw this tweet go out last week too. I'm blanking. I'm gonna blank right now. Give me the buzzer.
Okay. How about? I'm trying to think here. I will go with. This is pretty tough. sadly, I'm thinking of like the losses. I'm thinking like 2017 Wisconsin, but that was a loss, 40-6. How about? Gosh, I'm drawing some blanks too, Kyle. I would go with Washington State 2012.
Nope.
Oh, that was 30-6. That was 24 points too.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Dang it.
All right, I've got one. It popped in my brain. We're going to go Oregon 2006.
Yeah, there you go. See, you're okay. So
Nice.
Oregon 2006, obviously the Las Vegas Bowl. That was a lot of fun. I remember there was a bit of a skirmish before the game at the pep rally the night before.
Yes.
But yeah, 38-8. That was a fun game to watch.
Yes, Fremont Street. I think Ben Criddle was in the mix on that. I think
think he was.
I think remember too. Mike Bellotti had a comment saying like, "This isn't the Mount West anymore, guys. Like, you're stepping up to the face of Pac-10." Yeah, right. BYU hammered Gary Croton's offense in that Oregon team. So yeah, BYU rolled in that one, 38-8.
All right, Mitch, you got to stay alive.
Okay, I gotta stay in this thing. How about? Gosh, dang it.
I know there's people in their cars listening right now. And they're just going, Mitch, come on.
2001 Cal. Here we go.
Okay, that's not the one I thought you were going to get.
Okay.
2001 Cal, that is on the list. 28-point win. That's number 5.
Yeah, that was when Cal was just brutal. Like they were always kind of brutal. Cal, like Berkeley, but they were terrible. I think that wasn't Holmo. That was Holmo.
I think it was.
I think Holmo was the coach. That was a dark day for Cal football back then. But that was like the weekend before 9/11. And then the following week, they were supposed to play Mississippi State, and that got postponed. But, yeah, 2001, Cal. A lot of Pac-10 flavor on this list.
Yeah, and we still actually, that's it for the Pac-10.
You looking at something, Kyle?
I'm not looking at anything.
Okay, like, does he not know the rules?
I'm not looking at anything.
Hey, jeez.
I went to both of those games that I guessed earlier. So, like, I'm trying to go back into the games that I've been to that I've seen with my own eyes. Oh, my goodness. What was the margin? 24 or more?
BYU beat Stanford last week by 24.
So 24 or more is what it's got to be, huh? Man, I'm just trying to think about conferences that it would be. If it's not Pac-12.
Say something. Say something. Come on.
I'll give a quick hint. Mitch did say one was a 40-6 game. The score of this game was 41-7.
I don't know, Mitch.
41-6.
You got it.
41-7.
What a weird score.
Guys,
41-7. How am I drawing a blank on this?
BYU fans are going to tweet at us.
Was this in the Kalani era?
My goodness.
Was this in the Kalani era?
No.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? It was. No, I'm looking at the wrong one. Yes, 41-7. Yeah, it was Bronco era, 41-7.
Nebraska 2015. I know it's wrong. Incorrect. Okay, go on to the next one.
Man.
You guys are going to hear this and go, wow. I can't believe I didn't.
It's going to be bad, huh? I'm going to say Georgia Tech.
Oh, yes. Yes.
What would that have been?
Yeah,
2013?
Nope.
2012 or
12.
Buzzer. That's 24. So that was the same point differential as Stanford last week. So that's tied number 6. That's not in the top 5.
Oh, my gosh.
So 2012, Georgia Tech is not in the top 5?
Yeah, it was a 24-point victory.
That was the game where the announcer said Jamal Williams was like 17, I think 50 times in that broadcast.
Yeah. So we so far, just a quick rundown. We're looking for the top 5 largest margins of victory for BYU against a P4 opponent and the year. So number 1 is UCLA 2008. Number 3 is Oregon 2006, and number 5 is Cal 2001. So we're missing number 2 and number 4. It's a 34-point differential and a 29-point differential. One is at home, one is on the road. Within the last 11 years. One's an all-timer. I mean, I would argue they're both all-timers.
Oh, Texas 2013. No. Oh, jeez.
My gosh.
Kyle, can you
go ahead?
Can you steal this?
So Texas 2014?
Yeah. gosh. 41-7. I can't believe this.
No?
That's right.
Yeah, 41-7. Yeah.
He hit the buzzer.
Okay. Oh, yeah. That's
Not
right.
in midseason form there,
That's
Tito.
right.
Come on. It's
Yeah,
right.
It's right.
2014. That's Taysom Hurdle. My goodness.
Yep. Road game at Texas, 2014. That's one of the games I wish I could have been at. I could have watched live. I was on my mission. I missed that one. And then just to round out the top 5, super quick, number 4 was Kansas State last year, 2024.
38-9. Gosh.
Yep.
You know what the thing
29-point
is?
win.
The thing is I never think of the score with Texas game, 2014. I just always think of Taysom Hurdle. It's dominant, but I just never think 41-7. Well,
And
Kyle.
I don't think of Kansas State as a P4 program after the start they've had this year. So it's just like out of sight, out of mind. I was at that game
Kyle,
too.
You are taking a 1-0 lead in the top 5. So there you go. You came in. I guess I put the kid gloves on, your training wheels on. I am gonna come out with such fury going forward in this top 5. This will never happen again. I'm gonna go Tim Tebow and say I will never let this happen again. We gotta take a break. Kyle's saying that right now to me. He's like, they not like us. He's not like me. He's 1-0 in the top 5, getting the big dub. Congrats, Kyle. Well done, man.
Thanks, I appreciate it. You were like, you don't like tradition? I'm like, I hate spirit, tradition, and honor.
Well, listen.
Just kidding. Now I love it.
Now you say tradition. I look, with this new era of the show, we wanted to have like a new look. If we didn't want to go with this segment, we could pivot and do something different. Do a different style of game. But Kyle's like, he's wanting to get teed up what the list is beforehand to study. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Then he comes away with the victory. Maybe he was fooling me all along. Got to step it up going forward in the future weeks. But nice job, Kyle, getting that dub. And good list, Nate Slack, on putting that together. I don't know why I kept forgetting Texas. 41-7.
You pulled Cal, though. I was not getting
why
that one.
Why am I pulling Cal? 2001. That's Mitch, fix your brain sometimes. That's inexcusable. Let's get to some Cougar tells. What do we got on deck, Nate?
Got some BYU basketball talk. So it came out this past week that BYU and Arizona are going to be facing off on Big Monday. So 7 p.m. on January 26th, the Monday night. Family home evening, maybe, but it's going to be a fantastic game that night.
Electric. That word gets used a lot anymore in sports media, but I cannot wait. Look, shameless plug. If you want to go to Cougar Tracks podcast, I did a trip down memory lane with Big Monday. Jeremiah Jensen from KSL TV, he helped me out digging some archive footage of the old ESPN Big Monday games. Dude, I am so hyped for Big Monday to come back to Provo. It's been 20 years. Last time it happened was 2005. That was a 10 p.m. game. Big Monday, January 26th, 7 p.m. You don't have to wait until 10 p.m. this time around. Family home evening with the Cougs. And that's one thing, too. Monday games are tricky because BYU doesn't get to practice the day before. It's not ideal, honestly, for BYU, but what a huge stage for the Cougs to play Big Monday, Big 12 basketball against Arizona. Cannot wait for that.
Yeah, especially after the BYU-Arizona games last year.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm excited for that matchup, what it'll bring as they're now conference opponents. And, having that game in Provo, like, it's those kinds of games coming into the Marriott Center which make the conference, everything about where BYU basketball is as a program super exciting.
And to Mitch's point, it's going to be fascinating to see what game BYU has on that Saturday because it's only going to be no practices between the games.
Well, the nice thing is this year in the Big 12, they do have Friday games as an option. Fox is going to have some Friday night Big 12 games. So we're going to see Big 12 basketball, not necessarily for BYU, but Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, no Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe some Sundays. BYU obviously won't play that. And then Monday. So Big 12 basketball will be going all the time throughout the week where there's content every single night. So in a situation where they do have the Monday game, maybe they put them on a Friday night to give them a little bit of a gap to get some prep in for that opponent. But if they do the Saturday thing, you have no practice day in between, and it's just get ready to lace it up against a good Arizona team coming up this season.
And I got Wisconsin at 11 a.m. That's going to be the Nebraska game. BYU plays Nebraska in the exhibition game. First exhibition game on October 18th, same day as the BYU-Utah football game. It's going to be tipping off at 11 a.m.
I am so excited for that. I hope that we get BYU versus Utah as a night game on the gridiron, so we get to watch that. But yeah, BYU Nebraska, 11 a.m. October 18th. We're a month away, guys. So that's going to be awesome to see this in action. I wish it was a real game, though. I wish that, let's do a home and home of non-exhibition games. Let's do the real thing. Let's play it in the Marriott Center. Let's play it in Lincoln. It actually means something, but better than nothing. Better than the days of the secret scrimmages where it's like, oh, we played Nebraska, but we can't tell you any stats on the record, but we can tell you we can't tell you on the record the stats. It was a really good game, but we can't tell you. It's like, let's just put it all out there. Let's make some money off of it.
Yeah, especially for the fans too, because everything's being commercialized.
You gotta be hyped about this. Nebraska, BYU.
No, I won't have torn allegiances though. I'm all about Big Red unless it's a few select opponents, and this one will be fun though. I do like the fact that you've got some NBA ties too with this game.
Yes.
And you got Kevin Young, Fred Hoiberg. You've got two storied programs to a certain degree as well.
No.
Yes,
Nebraska's not storied in basketball. Come on now. You know that.
They are going to become a nice big
They haven't won an
Big Ten
NCAA
program.
tournament game.
Fred Hoiberg's doing things there in Lincoln, Mitch.
They haven't won an NCAA tournament game. Ron Boone's son, what was his name? What was Ron Boone's son's name? Didn't he play at Nebraska? Oh, I'm thinking, no, wait. Ty Lue. Didn't Ty Lue play at Nebraska?
Mitch with the deep cuts.
Yes.
I'm not sure on that.
Ty Lue played at Nebraska. He's not coming through that door.
No, I think
AJ DeBonce is coming through that door for BYU.
I was on campus there a couple of years ago in Lincoln, and there was a lot of excitement around that program. That's what I'm kind of going off there. I do think that in the way that the Big Ten is, I do think that Nebraska's got some room to be an exciting program there in that conference. You've got some ups and downs, but you've got BYU. I think that there's a lot of excitement in both of these, so we'll be interested to see what kind of comes out of that.
Tyronn Lue did play at Nebraska, so
okay,
fantastic poll. Did
Ron Boone? Did Ron Boone have a son that played in Nebraska too? Am I off on that? I could be wrong.
That's amazing.
I could be completely wrong, but anyway.
He did. Deron Boone.
Yes,
from 1992 to 1996.
Thank
Mitch, you are sick.
Yes,
well done.
Like I say,
he can't pull the top five. But
I can't pull BYU Texas. I can give you some Nebraska ball history if you'd like. Anyway,
I like it.
What else we got?
Last one, top JUCO prospect KJ Perry. He took his official visit this past week to BYU basketball. He's a 6'3" guard. He's awesome on offense. It looks like BYU's only got one other guy in the 2026 class currently is Dean Ruckert, but he would be a great addition for BYU basketball.
Would be huge. Probably the best JUCO prospect in the country. Combo guard, 6'2". He averaged about 17 points a game for Citrus College. And I think what's fun, too, about prospects like this, in the past you would have said, USC, TCU, Oregon. Does BYU have a chance? You look at that list and say, BYU's far and away the best offer, best situation. And I think it's noteworthy, too, that BYU's pursuing a JUCO prospect because, they already got Dean Ruckert, and class of 2026, Austin Gooseby is still someone they're chasing, the 5-star from Texas, and he's got, Duke, Texas in the mix. But KJ Perry, man, he is explosive. You go watch his highlights at Citrus College. He's still got another year at the JUCO ranks before joining whatever program he ends up signing with, but he'd be huge, and it's significant, too. It always gets forgotten, but basketball signing day is coming up at early November. So we're not too far off from these guys making decisions and signing with these programs. So KJ Perry would be a nice boom for BYU in this class of 2026.
I like the fact that Kevin Young and his staff are leaving no stone unturned in the recruiting game. They're going after high-profile guys, whether it be out of high school, JUCO. The fact that they're scouring for talent that makes sense for their program is really exciting. BYU is at a different place than they've ever been as a program, and I think that there's a lot of optimism, and so when you see things like this, it adds fuel to that fire.
Well, and Nate knows this. I mean, this staff, they want to chase some of the best prospects. They want to get some of the top 50 consistent guys. And that used to just be pie in the sky type prospects for BYU. Like, can you imagine if BYU consistently got, top 40, top 50 guys? No, that's going to be the barometer because BYU's going to be well equipped with rev share and resources so they can get that guy. And then you pair it up with the success and then the development of getting you ready for the pros, whether it's NBA, overseas, whatever it ends up being. They will get you ready for the next steps in your basketball career. And then you pair up all these proof of concepts, whether it's Richie Saunders from the leaps he made in year one under Kevin Young, just the strategy, the approach that Kevin Young incorporates. It's an impressive program. And BYU basketball, such high expectations. I think you should lean into them, Cougar Nation, because this team's going to be awesome. The future is so bright for BYU basketball. There's no doubt about that. As long as Kevin Young's there, BYU basketball is taking off like a rocket ship with this program. Let's take a break. On the other side, we'll get to some more BYU hoops. As you know, we're about 5 weeks away from that BYU-Nebraska game. Let's get some thoughts on Cougar hoops in this football bye week. It's Cougar Sports Saturday. It's powered by KSL Sports.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
That's caught. Touchdown! Stayed inside the boundary and gets in for 6.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Richie right to the rim, driving score. He would not be denied.
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Sponsored by Any Hour Services, Electrical, Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Kyle Ireland. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. Hour number 3 is off and running here on the legacy home of the Cougars. Mitch Harper and Kyle Ireland with you. We've been getting some text, and we wanted to ask this question. We've been asking it throughout the day. What are you doing on this BYU football bye weekend? Some of the texts rolling in here. Texter 3903 writes simply, "Go Pokes." I kind of expected that. I think a lot of Cougar fans are probably feeling that way. They're cheering for Wyoming. Now, you wonder, too, the old rivalry between BYU and Wyoming. I don't think Cougar fans have ever felt there's a rivalry with Wyoming. Wyoming fans were the ones that felt the hatred towards BYU. BYU was always like, well, Wyoming's throwing in our side. We got to go play them in late November. But really, we don't view them in the hierarchy of our rivals. So I think Cougar fans are okay to cheer for Wyoming. Texter 0000. That's crazy. That last 4 numbers. I'm going boating. Awesome. I'm jealous. Wish I had a boat.
Water might be a little cold this time of year. It's not the water. It's the air when you get out of the water.
Texter 9790 says, I'm one of the few Cougar fans who root for Utah unless they are playing BYU. October 18th, fight of the undefeated team sounds great. I'm watching my 6'6", 14-year-old grandson play for Lehigh football today as well.
Go Pioneers. I'm an alum.
And that man is also saying,
but I don't know.
He's saying go Pioneers. He's also saying go Utes, I guess.
I don't appreciate the former part of that text.
Texters,
explain that to me. Tweet at me. Let me know why. Text back in. Let us know why you actually are rooting for the rival. That doesn't make sense to me, Mitch. Like,
do you think there are more Cougar fans like that?
No, I don't. I think it is a small minority.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's 90-10 at best.
How do you feel? This is a funny question for you, Kyle. It's off the cuff here a little bit, responding to these texts. How do you feel when, because if you're like me, I think you probably naturally have these conversations where you're talking ball, talking BYU, just talking football, talking basketball with people. And then when you start to get to know someone for the first time and you're like, hey, so who's your team? I like both. How do you feel about that? When people say, I like both BYU and Utah, isn't that worse than saying I like the Utes? To me, that's worse. Saying I like both.
I can't even compute that, Mitch, because I am also a Michigan Wolverine fan, for instance. If you were to have somebody come up to me and be like, "Oh, do you like Michigan?" I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I like them, but I also like Ohio State."
Right.
People would be like, "What?" That doesn't make sense. "Oh yeah, I like Alabama and Auburn." What?
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And this is one of the best rivalries in all of college sports. And so, if you want to hold it in the same esteem as some of these other ones, you got to be one side or the other, and you got to be all in.
Is it a case though? I've always wondered this. Is the state of Utah, which has always had a little bit of a chip on the shoulder, underdog mentality, is that what creates that? Because I think we take pride in our state. The state of Utah, I love living in Utah. I love this state. I love being here. I'm very proud to be a Utahn. I think that a lot of people feel that same way, so I think they just want the good of the state to show up. But it's like, you can't do that with the rivalry the way that it is. Whereas Michigan and Ohio State, it's different states. It's kind of different lifestyles.
All right, Mississippi State.
I just
like there are a number of examples. You cannot vote for
I agree.
root for the rival.
I just think that's where
Are BYU fans looking at Weber State and SUU and Utah Tech and USU and being like, I hope all these teams win.
I do. I just think there's something in this state that's maybe different than other college fan bases and states where there's just a lot of pride. And I think sometimes people will turn to the whole, I want to see both BYU and Utah win. It's like, no, you can't do that.
I just wonder how many Utah fans would feel that way, and they're like, oh, man, BYU basketball, they've got a talented roster this year. I hope they make a Final Four run. Like, that's not happening. Like, why does it happen the other way?
Texter 0129 writes, I'm hoping on this Saturday that a lot of top 25 teams lose. Interesting thought. Is that what it takes for BYU to get into the top 25? Just a bye week?
BYU gets in on a bye.
They get in on the bye week. It didn't matter that you scored 69 on week 1 with a true freshman quarterback. That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that you hammered a Power 4 team by 24. That doesn't matter. Hey, you're off this week? Let's rank you. Texter 8014, hate watching Utah as part of my weekly task. Keep texting us 57500.
I respect it. I respect
What are you
the
doing
honesty
on this BYU football bye week? We're obviously watching college football. We got West Virginia and Pitt, the backyard brawl on the television here in studio. But we're also talking some Cougar hoops, Kyle, and BYU basketball. We're about 5 weeks away until the Cougars tip off the season with an exhibition game against Nebraska, October 18th in Lincoln. How you feeling about this Cougar Hoops team that's going to have as big of a preseason hype season as you will ever see for Cougar basketball?
Yeah, I think that this is going to be one where fans are locked in from the jump, so to speak. And I would say that, obviously there's a lot of hype with AJ coming into town. It's been nice to see him at the football games as well. Like
that was cool.
People are excited, and AJ seems to embrace the BYU experience thus far. But I think this roster is super talented around him as well. You've obviously got the Tot King coming back, Richie Saunders.
He's so good.
But Rob Wright is really the guy that I think is going to change the trajectory of this BYU program this year. AJ is going to be awesome, but AJ is going to be AJ, right? Like the team around.
What does that look like to you? What does AJ being AJ look like to you? Is that Big 12 Player of the Year good?
I think that he's definitely, like, that should be the expectation from BYU fans. Going into this season, Mitch, this team needs to reach the Elite Eight at a minimum, or else BYU fans are going to be disappointed.
Agreed.
They need to have him play like Big 12 Player of the Year for BYU fans to not be disappointed in this campaign.
It needs to be a Cooper Flag-like impact. And the nice thing like Cooper Flag had, he had NBA players around him, and they lifted each other up to a Final Four appearance, and they ran into a difficult force in Houston. But similar circumstances. I think AJ's got two guys that are NBA players around him. Maybe you need one more. I think Duke had, 4 guys that were on that team last year that got drafted this past summer, but AJ's got a lot of talent around him. And I think that, I look at what Kevin Durant told AJ DeBonsa last spring. You better go in and expect to be the Big 12 Player of the Year. That's what the great freshmen in that league have done. Blake Griffin, Kevin Durant back in the day. If you're the number one guy, that should be your expectation. And I think Cougar fans should expect that too. I think what's exciting is that, to your point, Rob Wright is going to be elite. That guy's ability to get into the paint and finish at the rim. Jimmer was incredible as a point guard. Could shoot it all over the parking lot. Getting into the gym, he's knocking it down. And he could finish at the rim too. He had an amazing ability to get to the foul line and then knock him down. But Rob Wright's physicality and ability, even at his size, in the paint, is elite. And then Richie, I think he's going to have so many open looks this year. Just pick your poison, man. You want to stop AJ? You want to stop Rob Wright? Okay. Richie Saunders is wide open, man. And then you still got guys like Tyler Murruss, probably going to come off the bench. Kennard Moo Davis, who this coaching staff, I think, is really excited about with Kennard Davis and what he can bring, not only offensively, because this is a high-powered offensive attack, but defensively, too. Moo Davis is going to be impactful for this team. I'm intrigued by a freshman and Dominique Diomande, the transfer from Washington. I think he is fascinating. He could be something really good for BYU. And then Hadim Mbop, maybe like a Kenneth Fareed type of player from back in the day. They've got so many different pieces on this roster. It is by far, Kyle. I've been watching BYU basketball for 30 years. This is hands down by a mile the most talented roster I've ever seen assembled. This is only year 2 for Kevin Young.
It's crazy the turnover from last season as well. This is really, I mean, aside from a couple of guys, you've obviously got Keba Keita, Richie Saunders, like as some starter level pieces that are returning. But you lost Yegor, you lost Trevin Nell, you lost Trey Stewart, you lost some valuable veteran pieces from a season ago. But the talent increase on this roster is night and day better.
These are NBA bodies. I mean, just the size, the height, the athleticism. And I think the challenge for this group is just going to be how it all comes together. You know, how does that locker room, I don't want to say the locker room is going to be difficult to manage it, but just, again, when adversity hits, how do they handle it? Does the leadership of Richie and AJ, they've got to be the leaders. AJ, that's a lot expected of him, but big paydays, big expectations, got to be a leader.
Endorsements that you're worrying about on the outside.
Yeah, I think AJ does a great job of that. He's got his financial team.
But there's just a lot around AJ.
No question. And I think people wanted to pick at him last year for his time at Utah Prep that Utah Prep didn't win. They said, well, is it because of AJ? That whole group, I think there was a little bit of immaturity on that team, and I think AJ was just ready to be done and just like, let's get on to college. Let's get on to the next phase where everyone's acting like pros. That's the thing about this BYU basketball program. It's a bunch of people that are treating it like pros. These are pro bodies, and that still got the college element, but the size, the athleticism, this is a really good team. And then we forget, too, but Keba Keita, how explosive he is at the 5 spot. And I would imagine he's probably going to have some new wrinkles in his game that probably impress everyone and go, man, he's evolved from last year to this year, too. And he's still working closely with Chris Burgess, and I just like the makeup of this roster. And then Xavion Staten, a 4-star, top 45 recruit, 7-footer, comes into the program. In any other year, that guy is we're talking about him nonstop. And he's going to probably come off the bench. And he will come off the bench. But he'll give an impactful, minutes. And then you got a guy like Alexei Kostic, who kind of like a little bit of a flyer. Like, I don't really know what to expect out of him, but an intriguing prospect that can be maybe developmental a little bit. So, and then you got Mihailo Boskovic, who comes back from last season. So many players on this team that are just kind of intriguing. And to see how Kevin Young brings it all together, I would like to think, though, Kyle, that probably this year it's not going to be a case of they're going 11 deep in the rotation. I think this rotation gets tightened a little bit, even though you probably could go 11 deep. But I feel like for this team to get to the heights that they want to reach, which Final Four national title is what they're chasing, I think you got to have that established 8-man rotation where night after night, these are your top dogs you're rolling with every single night.
Yeah, and this roster, I think, has the ability to you can tighten it down this season more than you could in years past. But I will say one last point for me on BYU's basketball season coming up. I'm really excited for this non-conference schedule, Mitch.
Agreed.
This slate of games, I mean, you open the season with Villanova, like that in and of itself is awesome, but you've got UConn, Wisconsin, Miami, Clemson, that Arizona game we were talking about. I'm excited to see the caliber, obviously Arizona conference game, but I do think that this slate of games, this is what BYU basketball fans have always wanted. They've wanted a talented roster like this. I don't even think that this was an expectation that was in anybody's dreams of something that was fathomable. But having this caliber of a roster, having the number one recruit like AJ come in, and then to be able to have these blue blood programs that BYU is going to be playing this season, there's not much more that you can ask for as a BYU fan.
And think about, too, when you bring up the blue bloods, I think of UConn, November 15th in the TD Garden in Boston. In years past, if you got that matchup, BYU's never played UConn in the regular season in basketball. But if you got that matchup in the past, you say, just show up well. Just play well. Don't make yourself look bad. Now you look at that matchup, and UConn's going to be a bear. I mean, they're going to be very tough out. And it's probably going to be a pro UConn crowd. They load up in Boston. I think it was 2 years ago on their second title run. They had a regional in Boston, and they filled that place up. I think Iowa State lost to them in the Sweet 16. They got just crushed. UConn will fill it up. It might be a pro UConn crowd instead of the pro DeBonsa crowd for his homecoming. But you look at that matchup and think BYU's not going to get outclassed. Like, they go into any matchup in college basketball. Doesn't matter who it is. They're not going to get outclassed. Maybe the only team that could still maybe outclass BYU potentially is Houston, just because of what Houston's done to BYU last year, 2 years. But still, BYU is a much different team this season. Houston is a much different team, too. They got some key pieces from that group that reached the national title game last year. Uzan, Emmanuel Sharp comes back. But you lose Jawan Roberts. You lose some of the vets on that Houston team. A lot more youth movement for Houston than years past. Again, there's not a game in college basketball, an opponent that just says BYU shows up and faces them, and BYU's just getting outclassed from a personnel, from a resources, from a staff standpoint. They are on par with anyone. And I've never said that about a BYU basketball team going into any season. And that's what makes this year the most anticipated season in BYU basketball history. And you can listen to all the action, of course, on KSL News Radio. The first game of the regular season will be November 3rd against Villanova down in Las Vegas. Cannot wait for that one. I'll be down there for that game, and that's just going to be a blast to see Cougars in action against a Big East team to open up the season that's going to be highly anticipated this year. Let's take a break. We'll check in on some college football and read some more of your text here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday here on KSL News Radio. Loving the text rolling through, 57500. What are you doing on this BYU football bye week? Texas, 57500. Mitch Harper, Kyle Ireland with you. Keep them rolling. Keep the text. I love the boating text. I think that one was a good one. That's one of my favorites. Kind of envious because I've always secretly wanted a boat. Even though I don't know if I'd be able to maintain a boat. I don't know the first thing about handling anything with a boat, but I'd like it nonetheless. Kyle, we're having a great time on this weekend here, talking BYU football. Did you see this news? This BYU football news for the fans?
Yeah, I saw it, and I have feelings on it.
Tell us this news.
So you've got the seating arrangement at LES It's changed over the years, Mitch, and it's affected a number of people, and it's going to affect everybody next year. That's the big key. It's affecting everyone. Starting in 2026, they're going to reseat the entire stadium at LaVell Edwards Stadium beginning next year. Season ticket holders. I know the West stands are not going to be happy about this news that was sent out this last week, but I do think that I understand both sides of it, I guess. I understand from BYU's side of it. I understand wanting to reseat. And, these games, these sporting events are becoming more corporate than ever before. You've got rev share you've got to worry about. You've got money that's coming in left and right. But you've got these games against big-time opponents like you've never had before. And, Nate, what do you think as far as what this impact is going to have on these families like yours that have had season tickets for decades?
Yeah, I think it's a bummer for some. I mean, for me and my dad, we don't really care where we're at. We have our preferences. We like to sit on one of the drop-offs so we don't have people walking in front of us. That's a pretty personal opinion, but I've got family. Like, I've got a cousin who was a cheerleader at BYU the last couple of years. She's not able to do it this year, but her family liked to sit as close as they could to the field behind the goalpost because they like to watch her cheer during the games.
Oh, cool.
But this year when our seats were reseated, they moved up about 20 rows because the seats in front of them were gone. So they went from being in row 4 to being in row 24, and so they were pretty bummed by that. So I think that's kind of an outlier, but I think people do have their preference of where they like to sit, and it's going to change year to year.
I guess my thought is, Nate, because you're on the front lines here. You're going to these games every single week. Are you okay with the move? Reseating every single year? Because I think for me, my thought is if you do want to get those coveted seats in your mind, you kind of know the path to get it. And that person that maybe has your seats, they're not going to occupy it. So ultimately, do you think it's a good thing?
Yeah, I think it is. And we used to sit the worst seats we've ever had. We sat 2 rows in front of the band, and we had no idea where we were going to be until we got to the stadium and we saw the empty chairs behind us, and we went, oh boy, here we go.
That was probably loud.
It was extremely loud. But I think it is good in the long run just because of what you said. If you want to get good seats, you know what you have to do. You got to donate a little bit more. And so the amounts aren't terrible, and especially at BYU, the ticket prices and stuff, they're very manageable. I mean, we got basketball season tickets for, I think it was $175 a ticket.
Yeah, the prices are actually good. It's just you got to donate more.
You got to donate more. So if you kind of save a little money throughout the year, it makes it a lot easier. But, we're in a position where we've been able to donate. Now we'll be able to get a benefit for donating, because there was a long time stretch where we would always see the Cougar Club people at basketball games or football games, and they would try to get us to join the Cougar Club. But there was no incentive for us to join because we weren't going to be going to the luncheons, and there wasn't really any other thing that was drawing us in. Now it's drawing us in because we wanted to have a higher preference of where we're able to sit. And so with the priority points and stuff, I think it's a bummer that it's gotten to this point where money is king, but I think it's the sooner that we can all accept it, the better. And yeah, you'll get what you pay for ultimately.
More Cougar Sports Saturday coming up next.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
That's caught! Touchdown! Stayed inside the boundary and gets in for 6.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Richie right to the rim, driving score! He would not be denied!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Sponsored by Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Kyle Ireland. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Cougar Sports Saturday, sponsored by Any Hour Services, electric, plumbing, heating, and air. Appreciate them being on board with Cougar Sports Saturday. So we were having some great discussion in the break. Wanted to bring it to the air. We were talking about the reseeding for LaVell Edwards Stadium beginning in 2026. Every year, fans, the season tickets will be reseated. So you can't just, it's not like years past where you're locked into your season ticket seat as long as you renew and pay the fees to get your tickets. They'll be reseated, and hopefully you can get your seat if you'd like. You just maybe, to ensure that, you probably need to donate a little bit more or continue to build up those priority points with the Cougar Club. But we were discussing how it's been pretty amazing through the first 2 home games. BYU is setting records for attendance. Week 1, largest crowd since 2009. That was against Portland State. Then week 2 against Stanford, largest crowd since 2007.
4th and 18.
That's against Utah. And it got us thinking, how are they getting this well above capacity? It's plus 100% capacity. What's your theory to it, Kyle?
I think that there's obviously momentum around this program that hasn't been seen in years. I wish that, going off of this, like reseeding the stadium conversation, I think this kind of fuels in, like if they keep selling out like they have been, this will also like add some fuel to the fire of like maybe expanding the stadium, getting those corners filled in, adding maybe some standing room only sections. You see a lot of people on the way that they've added those like platforms on the mezzanine on the corners there. You see a lot of people watching the games from those platforms as well now, whereas before you were just like on the turns going up the steps onto the next level, and not really a good vantage point from those other than like on the 5-foot edge there. But I do think that the excitement around this program, if it continues and BYU can stack wins, the successes there, playoff appearances, those types of things, conference championships, like that will add more of a reason for BYU to think about expanding the stadium rather than reducing it like they have in recent years, because then you don't have to worry about reseeding the stadium, because then you're going to be able to have cheaper seats at certain spots where you could have families that maybe feel like these moves are actually going to price them out of being able to go to games. They can, even single games, I think the people are going to feel the pressure like, hey, I can't afford to go to the BYU Utah game, for instance.
But I think the you want to find that nice balance, though, where you want the tickets to still be a hot commodity. Right now, they're a hot commodity. West Virginia game already sold out. Utah game, obviously, sold out. And then TCU, I would assume, will probably be sold out. UCF, we'll see on that one. That one's always tricky because it's post-Thanksgiving. But, what do you think, Nate? What do you think's causing this incredible historic crowds? Because I'll admit, I've been kind of blown away that we're hearing these attendance numbers to the degree that largest since
Portland
2007.
State's breaking records?
Well,
like, that shocks you?
It blows me away. Like, because I just always think in my mind that BYU gets sellouts, but we haven't seen this since the heyday of the Mountain West years with Bronco. What do you think, Nate?
I just think it's the Big 12. I think it's also part of it is basketball success, and I think people are looking at last year's success in football, thinking that they could take it to another level. Playing devil's advocate, I don't know, like, if the numbers are super accurate, because there are some other teams that kind of inflate their numbers in their stadiums to show sellouts and stuff. But I don't know. It's an interesting topic because there's been some huge games. I mean, the Texas game in 2013 and the Utah games in 2021, Arizona State 2021. Those were like some huge games. I don't totally understand why BYU is getting 3,000 people more at the games.
There's a lot of people in line for those Cougar tails now more than ever before, and you can't see them.
Well, I think that's a good point, too. And we were talking about this. I think that BYU football games have become an event where you want to get the Cougar tail, and that's part of what you do now.
And the Cougar Paw now. We tried that last week, Mitch. The Cougar Paw was on point.
I remember when Cougar tails came out. I'm telling you, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm totally off base here, it really wasn't a thing for like the first 10 years. No one talked about the Cougar tail. No one. Maybe it was just because it was pre-iPhone and pre-social media really kind of getting into its stride, but no one was buzzing about the Cougar tail. I honestly don't even remember getting them. I remember getting more the Sprite, just like with the blue straw and some
your non-caffeinated
just
soda.
mid hoagie. I think it was Hoagie Yogi back in the day.
Yeah, Hoagie Yogi.
But I don't really remember the Cougar tail being a thing. But that's become part of it. Then you add in turbulence. Then you add in the fire knives, the entertainment. What's Cosmo gonna do? If you're not a big football junkie, you still kind of like going to a BYU game because they got these cool lights. It's a spectacle. You want to see that fourth quarter. You want to stay to the end. How many broadcasters the last couple weeks, how many moments and references? I can't believe the crowd's still here. I think it's because they want to see that fourth quarter turbulence fire knife show. And then I wonder, too, how they're handling the Rock. And maybe we can ask around to kind of get some official word on this from BYU. But the Rock, because that went up in pricing. They sold those out. But also I think some students have said that I don't know if it's a lottery system, but how they're distributing the tickets to get into the stadium, are they just compacting those students as much as possible, being on benches? Because honestly, I'm sure students don't mind sitting on laps if they need to. Like, they're just there for have a good time. They're vibing. They're creating TikToks. They're having a great time. It's an electric atmosphere. It is awesome. And I just remember 20 years ago when there were pockets of Cougar fans trying to create groups that would say, hey, guys, let's get a movement to get everyone to wear blue. That was the thing 20 years ago. And now, fast forward, it is an electric atmosphere at BYU games.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because thinking about all the marketing stuff that's been done, even when I was interning for Greg Rubel, they started the Cougar Canyon. And so
2019.
Or 2019, yeah. That was really cool because I was able to stand out there with Greg while he was doing his pregame show, and I was with, Riley Nelson at the time. And seeing the fans kind of get excited outside the stadium because it's always been talked about how BYU doesn't have a tailgating scene, and that kind of makes up for at least part of it. But it's definitely the whole experience of like wearing your royal blue shirt and getting your Cougar tail and seeing Cosmo do flips and seeing the band come out and watching the Cougar walk. Everything about the event, it's become a full day activity instead of just the game.
And then on top of that, they're good right now. And but I think those elements that you're talking about add to where no matter what, that's going to have some staying power. Even if there's a year where you go 6-6, you're still having a great day at a BYU football game because they have all these elements that are just so fun. Now, don't pull a 2023 Iowa State and have Cosmo do Singing in the Rain. If you do that, then you're like, this doesn't hit the same way. And turbulence.
Was that not so fitting, though, to have that be Cosmo's stunt during a blowout loss in October?
Oh, that was so brutal. And then you got the fire knives. And you're just like, yeah, this doesn't hit the same way. And BYU's in these all black uniforms, which mixed reviews on those.
Hey, I'm just glad the Cosmo is still with us after last Saturday.
Holy cow!
Doing the
Great
Rubik's
point.
Cube with the Houdini water tank. He had to come up for air because he couldn't do the Rubik's Cube in time. He lost the grip of it, and it was floating up, and he was trying to grab it and finish it off. He almost did it. But thank God that Cosmo is still with us still. Praise the heavens.
I was very concerned for Cosmo's well-being in that David Copperfield style stunt that he was doing with the Rubik's Cube. I mean, gosh, I've never been able to solve a Rubik's Cube, so my mind was just, I'm like, there's no way he's getting out of there. If he's got to solve this before getting out, it's insane. But it has been incredible atmospheres at BYU games, and there's only 4 home games left, which the home games, again, West Virginia, Utah, TCU, and UCF. But I think you brought it up earlier too, Nate, the basketball side. And I think another thing, that piece with basketball, but I also get the sense that Cougar fans feel like, okay, I have to pay more, but I'm willing to do that because I know that the team I'm cheering on is all in too. I think in years past, there was more reluctancy to spend premium dollar. One, because BYU was outside the power conference, but two, there was this feeling of, is BYU all in? Is BYU willing to pay whatever it takes to get to the highest of highs in sports? Whereas now, you're talking about BYU basketball being one of the top rosters, financed rosters in the sport. And BYU football, nowhere near probably the top 10. I don't know if they're top 20 even. But you look at the future, they're getting Ryder Lions. That's not cheap. You're not getting Ryder without having a nice NIL package. So this program is all in to win, and I think that adds to where, you know what? They're all in. I want to be all in as a fan, too. I'm going to support this and keep the machine going.
Yeah, one thing I have concerns about, just kind of switching gears a little bit, you mentioned the 4 home games left on the rest of the season, but let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the next 7 games are on the road for BYU football, and that's
tough.
And they're not just tough games. You travel 2 time zones to ECU. You play at Colorado. You're home to West Virginia. You go to Arizona, which is looking a lot tougher than it did if the game was played last year. Home to Utah, and then at Iowa State, a bye, and then at Texas Tech. And that's a brutal stretch. Just kind of curious what your guys' thoughts are on the next stretch and what BYU's record could be after maybe the next 6 games or so.
I think Mitch was the one that said earlier that he thinks that they could be 5-0 going into that Arizona game on the road, and then if you manage to pull that one out in Tucson, you've got Utah coming in at home. You could have undefeated teams playing there in mid-October. That would be really impressive and a fun matchup. And then you obviously hit those 2 road games at Iowa State and Texas Tech. That stretch is just going to be so tough, and that's really going to be where this BYU team proves what they are. Is this a good team, or is this a mediocre team? Is this a team that's fighting for bowl eligibility in November, or is this a team that we're talking about that's fighting for double-digit wins like they were a season ago? That stretch right there is really going to be what proves where this team is at.
I think for me, it was, we talked about this in the summertime, Nate, was when the outside was saying that BYU has the easiest schedule in the sport. I always disagreed with them because they had 4 home games in league play. That alone doesn't make it the easiest. If you have 5 Big 12 home games and 4 road, okay, now you can be in that conversation to be in the easiest, and then you kind of drill it down deeper. But when you have 1 fewer home game than road, you're not the easiest schedule. And now how it's stacking up and just how you laid out, 5 out of 7, I didn't put it in those terms, but that is difficult. So this team is going to be tested. And so it's challenging. And then you're watching, West Virginia, who might be the weakest out of these opponents in the 7-game stretch. They're up right now on Pitt at home, 7-0, and impressive for them. That's just the Big 12, where what you learned last week doesn't necessarily apply to the following week, and they could be a completely different outlook. So it's going to be a tough stretch. But I love that, though, for BYU football. And I think for Cougar fans, circling it back to them and investing into tickets, that's what they've always wanted. Just the feeling of every single week, you don't know what's going to happen. And the chance to be among the best in college football. look, BYU is always going to have a slight against them. No matter what league they're in, it feels like BYU always got to go prove it well above what's expected to earn respect. But I just think the grind, the week after week battles that BYU is going to experience in the Big 12 this year and the years to come, I think it's fun. And I think Cougar fans are really embracing this type of competition week after week, and it's just a fun dynamic. But this 7-game stretch is going to be a buzzsaw. It's going to be really challenging for the Cougs.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that I'm interested to see going back to the seating at LaVell Edwards Stadium is, does that West Virginia game, does that Utah game break another record?
I think Utah game could.
Do we get that attendance announcement and we're like, oh my gosh, largest crowd?
The highest attended game was, I don't know if they'll ever be beat. Before there was the expansion, the renovation on the east sideline, I think it was 2003. Pre-2003, it was like 66,500. I think it was Notre Dame in 1993. And then before that, I think it was Miami, 1990, 66 plus. I don't know if you get to that level, but I think with the crowd that was last week against Stanford, that could be beat with the Utah game. I mean, Utah's going to sell out its allotment. Students, if they're saying you got to pack in more than ever before to get an extra 1,000 fans to get that 12th man element, I think students would be willing to do whatever it takes to get into that game. So, I expect another record setter for that Utah game. West Virginia, maybe not, but I will say the West Virginia game, I was looking at just kind of some hotels, kind of get a gauge of maybe travel and things like that to see what people are doing, to kind of get a sense of maybe the visiting section. All the Marriott hotels are sold out. Now, that could be a combination, too, of people visiting the Valley to go to General Conference the following day to drive up to Salt Lake. So that could be a multitude of factors there. But hotels are pretty much gone in Provo for that West Virginia game. So I expect a great crowd for that one, too. It's gonna be awesome. LaVell Edwards Stadium is quite the sight to see for BYU football games. Let's take our final timeout. On the other side, we'll put a bow on the show next here on Cougar Sports Saturday.
Cougar Sports Saturday. Welcome back in. Kyle Ireland, Mitch Harper, Nate Slack closing out the show today. We've got some Big 12 football that we're going to be watching today. It looks like we've got Oregon State at Texas Tech in a lightning delay, Mitch, but that game should be
riveting.
Should be kicking off.
Riveting. Lubbock,
again.
West Texas delays. That sounds miserable.
Some Texas humidity and lightning and rain. That sounds fun.
How about this? Iowa State, they're up on Arkansas State. Iowa State, number 14 in the country. They're only up 9-3, 12:34 to go in Jonesboro, Arkansas. So,
why schedule that game?
Thank you, Nate. Why is the Big 12, why are these athletic departments scheduling these type of games? There's no win. No win for Iowa State in that spot.
It makes you feel a lot better about this East Carolina matchup, though. That's one way to look at it.
Wait,
You're like,
it does?
I'm just saying that's not as bad of a game. I'd rather play East Carolina.
It makes me feel worse because East Carolina's better, but it's the same deal. It's group of 6, and you got to travel a far distance. And
these are the last 2 games against them too.
I'm not afraid of the East Carolina game next week. Maybe let's touch on that really quick before we get to break. We'll be out in Greenville, North Carolina next week. BYU, North Carolina, or East Carolina, 5:30 kick here on KSL News Radio. Initial thoughts, Kyle, on the Pirates, that matchup before we get out for the weekend.
BYU needs to win this game by 2.5 touchdowns.
So you want some style points?
Yeah,
they've got look crisp and good.
Yeah, they've got to have taken advantage of this bye week, get the offense rolling a little bit. That's the one thing that we didn't see in the first 2 games: a rhythm out of Bear Bachmeier and the offense.
I like that.
I just want to see rhythm. I don't care if you put up 50 points, 69 points, whatever it is. You just got to find some rhythm with this offense, so that way once you get into Colorado a week later, you feel good about where things are at.
East Carolina's going to play tonight at 5:30 against Coastal Carolina. What do you want to see out of that game next week? Just early thoughts on the matchup, Nate.
Yeah, I just want to see BYU pass the ball better, and they need to go downfield a little bit more. I think having the bye week this week, maybe they'll be able to open things up a bit more. But also maybe they just didn't feel a need to do that against Stanford or Portland State because the game was never in question and they knew the defense was going to pretty much shut out the teams. But having Bear Bachmeier pass 38 times this season so far and 11 of those passes have come behind the line of scrimmage. I just want to see BYU go a little bit more vertical than horizontal.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I'd like to see that as well. East Carolina's got a good quarterback, Caden Hauser, 680 passing yards this season. They've only played 2 games, so they're putting up numbers through the air. Their passing attack and their defense, I thought was going to be a little bit of a weakness because they lost so much personnel. Not bad. Their defense, they've done a nice job so far. They held NC State to only 24, held Campbell to 3. So we shall see. I'm curious to see how they perform tonight on that teal field in Conway.
Nightmares.
A curse
Just
field.
1 yard away, man. 1 yard away. Mullets versus Mormons. Anyway, that's at 5:30. BYU and East Carolina next week at 5:30 as well. And again, we will have Cougar Sports Saturday coming to you from Greenville, North Carolina next week. So we will talk to you then. This has been Cougar Sports Saturday on KSL News Radio.